So that's kind of the way this is going. It's not like the Dolphins have been dominant or anything. So so we'll see how it goes. But this to me is leading into college football. This to me is the difference between the NFL and college football. In college football, some of these games actually do mean something. And I just feel like week to week in the NFL, the game just doesn't really mean much. It means much on that day. Like it's good, it's a great TV product, but once it's over, it's kind of out. Like it's over with. It's over. You don't really need to worry about it anymore. But so this Saturday. It was one of those days, man. You get one of those days in college football. It's every season. There's one or two of these where it's just nobody's safe. Everybody can beat everybody. And you have no idea what's going on. And all these teams that were 20-point favorites lose. It was incredible.
Well, and Joel Klatt was talking on his podcast. He was talking about he talked for like 20 minutes about the Bama-Texas game. And Bama should have some concerns. I mean, they're not running the ball that well. They basically get it. And this is going back to last year. They get into a bad situation because they're not running the ball. They're not doing a lot of stuff. And then Bryce Young bails them out. He has to, as Joel Klatt was saying, he puts on the Superman cape and bails them out. And, if he also pointed out if Texas had a healthy quarterback, because Quinn Ewers he was out of the game, and then the backup quarterback, he said, was hobbled a little bit. So if they could have gotten a couple more plays out of one of their quarterbacks, then maybe they would have won the game. I mean, they almost did.
Yeah, so I was thinking this game, like everybody else, I'm thinking Alabama's going to beat them by 30. Like this won't even be a real contest. First of all, I just want to say congratulations to Alabama. The first time in 10 years they played a Power 5 team on the road out of conference. Which is quite, first of all, the fact that that's true is just really disturbing. Number one, it's really a problem for college football that this kind of shit goes on. But that being said, they did go to Austin to play Texas, which is awesome. And and by the way, it shows you this is why we need these games in college football, because that was unbelievable. This is why we need it, because you go on the road against a Power 5 team, it's a different animal. It's not like going to, play Utah State, or they're playing Louisiana Monroe this coming week. Like, it's a whole different ball game, and Texas came out swinging. They were going for it from early in the game. I got to give Steve Sarkisian credit. He knew exactly what he was doing. He had everything dialed up. They've got this receiver that Alabama could not cover at all. So they're just like, okay, we're throwing it deep. And every chance they got, they were chucking it. 2nd and 1, okay, here we go, boom. And they hit a couple of them, and they screwed up. There was a play right before the half. They had the ball right down in Alabama's end, and they couldn't get a touchdown. And I think he missed the throw, or he caught it out of bounds, and then they missed the field goal. And it really kind of cost them the game. But it was Texas's defense. They were really something. They were flying all over the place. They were getting at everybody. But that being said, Alabama does have some issues. They have some their offensive line it's still not right. It wasn't right last year, and you saw in the games last year, they should have lost to Auburn. They should have lost to LSU.
Well, they were able to. If you look at the rushing stats, and Joel Klatt pointed this out, if you look at the rushing stats, Bama had like one long run, and then besides that, they had like 40 yards on like 16 carries or something like that. So, that's not consistently running the ball, and it's like you're going to expect Bryce Young to just bail you out all the time, like
Yeah, and listen, Bryce Young he's incredible. Like the idea that he's just got free rushers coming at him, and he's managing to escape and get away from them and make plays anyway, and then taking off and running when it's necessary. Like that dude is a gamer. There was a play on the last drive, Alabama driving for the field goal, where the guy is coming right at him. There's nobody in his way, and Bryce Young manages to duck under the guy and avoid the tackle and then run for a first down. It's just the guy is ice water in his veins. But and it's like listen, anybody who would say, we don't need to be that concerned about Alabama. Listen, for Alabama, the standard is win the national championship. If you want to win the national championship, they're concerns. Like, this is a problem. The other thing is they don't have the wide receivers like they did last year. They don't have the
Right.
game-breaking guys that can take the top off the defense, and that was the problem yesterday, is that they really couldn't hit anybody deep, so they're having to throw these short passes. So Texas is just like, okay, fine, we'll just play zone, and you're gonna have to be perfect on every single throw. And so, Alabama was a little bit off, partly because they were playing on the road. Alabama had 14 penalties, which for a Saban team is unbelievable. It's the most penalties they've ever had with him as the coach. So their sloppiness plus how hard Texas played like it was the game of their life. And again, that goes to my point. Play somebody on the road, okay? Because it is a different animal, and especially in college football. So, yes, Alabama has some concerns. Bryce Young's unbelievable. I don't know if they can continue through an SEC schedule like that, but it was an incredible game.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is that I was just I was thinking of this, like what was it? What's his name? Big Cat, who was on. He was doing Ryan
Barstool
podcast. Yeah, and he pointed out, he's like they were talking about parity in college football, and he goes, basically what you need certain places to be really good, because part of the and you've pointed this out before. Bama's been so successful because USC's been down. So they go to California, they get guys out of there. Texas has been Texas for a little while, so you can go into Texas, you can get guys. You can go into Florida and get guys because the U, Florida State, and Florida have been kind of all over the place. So if you want parity in college football, USC needs to be good, and they need to keep kids in California. Texas, and Texas A&M need to be good, and they need to keep more kids. Well, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma need to keep more kids that are from there, the Texas-Oklahoma area, there. And then Florida, the U, Miami, or the U, Florida State, and Florida, they need to keep more kids in Florida. Because that's part of the problem. Like Bama and a few of these schools have just been hogging everybody because so many of these programs are down.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great point. And listen, I'm not saying Saban isn't the best coach ever. I think he is.
No, he's awesome.
But he also was fortunate to take over Alabama right when Pete Carroll left, right after Pete Carroll left USC, Mac Brown left Texas, right? Miami fell down into whatever. Ohio State did not have Urban Meyer yet. Remember, Ohio State was just getting their ass kicked by SEC teams in the championship every year.
Florida, and then Urban Meyer left eventually.
Right. Yeah, Urban Meyer left Florida, so that got that out of their way. So they have been they don't have this many championships just because they're great. It also kind of worked out. It's like Brady playing in the AFC East.
Yeah, it's kind of like another example. It's kind of like Roger Federer. Not to take anything away from him, but he won his first one, and then Pete Sampras retired, and then there was kind of nobody really great in his way until like Nadal started playing, and then Djokovic came along. So, it's not that they're not great. It's just there are some different things that, like some obstacles that clear out of your way that make it easier for you to, dominate. So.
Right. And I think, we'll see. Hopefully that's changing now. But anyway, so let's see. Let's go through the other upsets. So Texas A&M lost to Appalachian State.
Is
State, by the way,
State 1AA, or are they?
They're FCS. Yeah.
They're FCS. Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, Appalachian State, who, by the way, I mean, they've done this before. They famously beat Michigan. They took a couple other Power 5 teams to overtime in the last 10 years.
Week? Didn't they have a close game last week?
Yeah. No, they lost to North Carolina by 2 points.
Right.
It was a home game, but they scored 61 points in regulation and lost.
Right.
So they almost beat North Carolina last week, and then I was watching the game. They were pushing Texas A&M around. Like it's a little disturbing. Like they were running the ball, and it wasn't like Texas A&M didn't know they were going to run the ball, and they just ran it on them anyway. And Texas A&M may be changing their quarterback here. We'll see, because their offense is a struggle. Like they had a kick. They scored 14 points. They had a kick return for a touchdown. So the offense got 7 points in the whole game. So it was it was disturbing after all the stuff about Texas A&M and their recruiting class. Ooh, it does not look good. And this coming Saturday, Texas A&M is playing Miami. So that ought to be a really interesting game. But that was a crazy upset. The other one, it was Marshall beating Notre Dame. at Notre Dame, which I'm watching the game, and I'm thinking, oh, Notre Dame's going to be pissed off because they lost, and they're going to come out and just, they're going to run this team over. And, I'm watching the game, and, they're staying in it. They're staying in it. They get to the second half, and Notre Dame's offense just can't do anything, and so they got, I think Marshall had 3 interceptions. They returned 1 for a touchdown. And, Notre Dame's quarterback got hurt. So, which, by the way, I found out today, Notre Dame, the quarterback that got hurt is going to be out for 4 months because he messed up his shoulder. So they're going to have their backup quarterback for the rest of the season. So, first of all, just my outlook on Notre Dame, they don't have any playmakers. Like I watch the Notre Dame pretty regularly. So I see what they've got, and they got nothing this year. They have no game-breaking running back, no game-breaking receivers. Their best player on offense is a tight end who's really good at catching passes, but he's slow. So, and the quarterback that they were playing, Tyler Buckner, can run but can't really throw that well. So, looking at Notre Dame's, he got hurt, right? Yeah. So now they're going to be playing the backup. So, I'm looking at Notre Dame's schedule. I don't know that they're going to be bowl eligible. Like, they've got 10 games left. They've got to go 6-4 to be bowl eligible. They got to play Clemson. They got to play USC at the end. They have to play BYU. BYU's ranked, by the way. BYU just beat Baylor on Saturday night in overtime.
Yeah.
It's not looking good. So my overall and my overriding thought about that is that Brian Kelly, pretty darn good coach. Okay? The minute he leaves, Notre Dame's losing games at home to Marshall. Okay? Brian Kelly was not losing those games when he was there. So, Notre Dame, that was quite disturbing. The other game, I have more thoughts on Brian Kelly, but the other game that I wanted to, the other couple of games that I wanted to talk about was USC played Stanford. And, people got all excited last week as USC, hung 60 points on Rice. And it's like, all right, we'll see, blah, blah, blah. I think USC still has a ways to go, but they got some dudes. They got a quarterback. They got a couple receivers. They got a running back. Like, they have some speed, and they put 28 points in the first half against Stanford. So, yeah, I don't think, I'm not one of these guys. Well, they're back. USC's back. I don't think they're back, but I do think they've got talent. And so I'll be really fascinated to see I wanted to see how they did in this game, and they really kind of dominated. Right. Now they have some issues up front. Stanford kind of pushed them around a little bit, but USC's speed and talent is just far beyond them. So we'll see what happens when USC plays Oregon and they play Utah, the 2 other good teams in their conference. We'll see how it goes. But I was impressed with what I saw. Like, a coach to, and they were just throwing the ball. The amount of times that I think Jordan Addison is his name, the receiver that they got, the transfer from Pittsburgh, the guy was running open 20 yards down the field the whole game. Like, they could chuck it deep to him anytime they wanted. So anyway, but yeah, the best part was Clark texting me at 10 o'clock at night. What the hell happened today?
I was watching some stuff on Saturday, but it was just like I just started seeing all these results. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, it was just one of those days, and it was honestly like you're looking at the schedule going, this ain't gonna be good. But even the games like Tennessee and Pittsburgh went into overtime. Like, it was just one of those days. Every game was unbelievable. So it was crazy. I also I watched the Florida-Kentucky game. I was watching because both quarterbacks are, probably going to be first-round picks. Anthony Richardson for Florida, yeah, he's played really well last week, but really didn't play well this week. Had a hard time locating the ball, wasn't really accurate throwing it. I didn't understand Florida's plan though. They kept trying to. They're like, no, we're going to hand the ball off to the running back. They kept trying to run the ball when they couldn't run it, and then they didn't let the quarterback run very much, which I thought was strange because he's an unbelievable athlete. So I don't know why they didn't do that. And they scored 16. They had 16 points in the first half. They didn't score in the second half. So yeah, that was a little disturbing. Will Levis, the quarterback for Kentucky, he's got some NFL skills. big guy, like 6'4", throws a nice deep ball. So, we'll see how that goes going forward. But yeah, it was pretty insane. But the thing that I wanted to talk about real quick was, we'll look into this more later, but I was listening to Ryan Russillo's podcast last week, and he was basically saying after LSU lost to Florida State, he was basically saying, the media and the fans don't like Brian Kelly. Like just normal, regular fans of college football. Not LSU fans are obviously probably in the bag for him. But, and I just found that kind of interesting that, wow. So I just kind of did some, basic kind of research online, and, so what happened last week after they lost, it was like the Monday or Tuesday after that, and he has a press conference, and some of the media was late to the press conference. So he said, all right, well, I guess we'll finally start this press conference, even though we're late, blah, blah, blah. And one of the reporters said, well, maybe if you win, I'll be on time. And I would have thought, okay. I just blew it off like it's a joke, The way Brian Kelly said it was kind of like, okay, whatever. I thought he was joking, so I didn't think much about it. But apparently it became like a big story. And, from what I can gather, apparently there is still a lot of animosity about him leaving Notre Dame the way he did. And, reading up on it, so he leaves Notre Dame before the bowl game, whatever, and everybody's like, well, he was on a recruiting trip and the communication and blah, blah, blah. Well, when he left Cincinnati, he left before the bowl game to come to Notre Dame.
That's what you have to do in college football because of the way the recruiting calendar is. Right.
So I don't understand, like, really, you're that upset with him because he left Notre Dame? So I think it's a combination of things. I think, number one, he's not a Southerner. Right. So that's an issue with ingratiating yourself, especially when you talk about college football in the South and you're not from there. It's a kind of a big deal, that he's from the North, and, and then, there was that thing where he tried to fake a Southern accent or whatever, which I thought was ridiculously overblown.
Yeah. I didn't hear it.
But I guess he's done a lot of stuff, and I watched a lot of the press conferences clips throughout the year, and it looks to me like, I don't think he's doing himself any favors. Like, he's not really endearing himself to everybody. And then when you lose, I think it just turns into a mess. But I don't have it figured out yet. I don't understand what the dislike is towards him. But there's definitely some, because Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma. He's not catching anywhere near the amount of crap that Brian Kelly's getting. So I don't quite have this nailed down yet. We'll see how this season goes, but I agree with Colin Cowherd. Brian Kelly is a really good coach, and I think LSU everybody needs to relax, and because you know as well as I do, Clark, if you win, nobody's going to care where you're from. So
yeah, no one cares. Yeah, it's not. I mean, where's Nick Saban from?
Right, West Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
yeah. Nobody. You're right. Nobody cares.
Just went. But again, it's one of those things where it's arbitrary.
Right.
Why do people hate this actor, hate this musician? Or sometimes it's warranted. I mean, why do people not like? I don't know. Why do people not like Bill Cosby? Well, that's kind of obvious,
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of other stuff. Like sometimes people I remember years ago there was a back when I was on Twitter, I remember seeing all these people who did not like the actress Anne Hathaway. Like they thought she was fake or something, and she won an Oscar or something. I'm just like, why is this a thing? Like what, I think I was talking to somebody about it. They're like, yeah, I don't understand. Like, what, it's like, you think this person's fake? It's like, well, they're all actors. They're all fake. I mean, what's the difference? Like, this is just, again, it's a completely arbitrary thing. And people do this with coaches, too. Like, people got mad at Harbaugh, and it's just like, what did you expect Harbaugh to do? He's going to Michigan. They're not they're not this powerhouse that wins national championships. They're a really good school, and they have a big brand. And, they win, 9-10 games a year, but that's basically it. They don't win a bunch of national championships. But people just said, oh, well, he was supposed to win. And it's like, well, you're an idiot then, because that's not what people were really thinking. So,
Yeah, I think it's honest. It's kind of interesting when you think about it, right? I mean, Jim Harbaugh. Like, I could make the argument, right? I think Jim Harbaugh is a better coach than Nick Saban. I mean, look, Nick Saban went to the NFL, sucked. Jim Harbaugh has won every single place he's been. San Diego won. Stanford won. Goes to the NFL with the 49ers, takes him to the Super Bowl. Goes to Michigan. He's winning 9-10 games a year. They make the playoff last year. Like, Harbaugh can do it anywhere, anytime. So I don't think I think people are that's another guy that people are way too hard on. But I don't get the Brian Kelly thing. I don't understand, like,
maybe it's an anti-Notre Dame thing, or like they get mad at. It's kind of like, remember when Ohio State, when they played Florida in that national championship game and just got destroyed, right? And then they played LSU a few years later, and they got destroyed again. People are like, "Oh my God, why are you putting this team in here? They can't compete with," and it just became this kind of anti-whatever. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know, because Notre Dame, they get into these big games and they can't compete because they don't have enough players, because you can't get enough good players into the school. So
Right. Yeah. I don't get it seems like there's a double standard. I don't quite get it, but he may have rubbed some media people the wrong way, and it ends
that's
up coming
probably
out.
a big part of it. You know what? He pissed some of them off, and then they just, that's how the media gets. You piss them off, and then they're just like, we don't like this guy.
Yeah, they crush him every chance they get. Paul Feinbaum, every time he loses a game, is ripping him apart. So it's kind of like I don't quite get it, but we'll see how this season goes. But regardless, it was an unbelievable day in college football, and we'll see what happens. I'm really fascinated to see how Alabama does with the rest of their SEC schedule, and it's too bad. Notre Dame was ranked 8th, and now they're not in the top 25. So,
yeah. So yeah, that was pretty much all. I didn't really have anything else.
Yep. All right, folks. Well, looking forward to the games next weekend. Everybody enjoy. Root for the Dolphins, and God save the Queen.
Yeah. Okay. There.